Hey everyone, next stream we're still talking about building a backend for our Webflow sites. In this case, we are still building a really cool to-do app. And up until now, we've done a bunch of cool things. We've been able to create a backend to store, create, update, delete to-dos. And then the next steps were identify our users so everyone can have their own to-dos. So essentially a user account with their own to-dos. Okay. So in the previous streams, I think that it was 2 different streams, we talked about implementing Auth0 in our to-do application. Okay. Everything is still quite rough. Everything is just looking pretty because we're just taking care of understanding the concepts and the base of what we're building, but we're not actually making a really fancy, cool app. But still, everything is there. So we implemented Auth0, and now we're able to identify all the users. And then we're gonna start charging for users, because then we'll be able to have free users and paid users. Some free users will have, I don't know, some simple features like just creating and reading to-dos. And then if you want to update a to-do, for example, we'll make you pay for it. Okay? I know it's the idea of the century. We're going to turn this into a unicorn company, I'm sure of it. But that's the idea. Okay? We're going to leave some features to only paid users.
That's sweet.
We have a few drawings here, very simple. This is something that we defined in previous streams, like how do the endpoints look like. We have an endpoint for retrieving to-dos, and we have an endpoint for creating to-dos, okay? But that's it. And when retrieving to-dos, first we authenticate the user, and then we retrieve the to-dos from the user, from the database, and we return that. And when posting, we do the same. We identify the user, we get the data, we create that to-do, and then we save that to-do tied to the user. Okay, so it's only for that specific user. We have that. Okay, and now I want to talk about the full process of having a user, charging the user for it, and then being able to identify if a user is paid or not to offer some of the functionalities. Okay, so we have a bunch of things to do. First of all, we have to identify the user. Obviously, we've already done that. The next thing is that we want the user to pay for it, okay? User has to be able to pay. Let's just say to pay, okay? So to be able to do this, we will just very conveniently create a Stripe customer profile for each user from Auth0, okay? And because this is related to Auth0 and not directly to Stripe, this is going to be done the next stream, okay? Today we're focusing on the basics of Stripe, like how can I slap Stripe into a website and start charging for stuff. But then we will have to do the second part, and which is using those charges, using the differences between a paid user and a non-paid user to actually implement that on a site to reflect it somehow, okay? So we identify the user. The user has to be able to pay, okay? And when paying, the workflow has a couple things. The first of all is we create what's called the payment intent. Okay, now let me define what's this. So essentially, this payment intent defines what we're gonna charge the user for. Okay, and this payment intent, it's created by Stripe. Okay, we're gonna generate it ourselves, but we're gonna do it through Stripe. And this way, a payment intent, it's just a security method to avoid people being able to tweak their own cards, okay? So imagine that let's just think of a very simple use case, a very simple situation. I'm on a store, an online store, and I have my card, right? I want to purchase a bunch of things. And then when I go to the checkout, that card I don't know, let's say that it costs $100. Okay, I have that card. And then I move to the checkout, right? But in the checkout, if I didn't have some way of tracking that card in a backend, maybe I could be, a little bit naughty, and I could try to change how we are paying, how we are sending the pay request to the server. And maybe instead of, I don't know, charging $100, maybe I want to charge $1. Maybe I can change. I could try to change that. Okay. A payment intent it's essentially Stripe's way of securing that this does not happen. Essentially, before charging the user, we're going to tell Stripe, hey, we're about to make this charge. And this charge will be for a subscription that it's $5 a month, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we want to charge $5 now to the user. Okay, Stripe will return that payment intent to us. And with that payment intent, then we can do the full checkout. We can ask the user to fill the details and finalize that payment. And there's no way of mutating that because Stripe will make sure that the payment intent stays the same. We're not changing things, okay? And you'll see that in a second. I think I'm just giving you too much info now, and maybe I'm confusing. But we will create the payment intent. Then user will fill the payment form, okay? And then we will confirm that payment. We'll confirm that payment. And at this point, a bunch of things can happen, okay? It can happen that the payment goes well. So the card, it's perfectly working fine. There is no security issues, whatever. Or it could happen that there are extra steps that we need to take there. Maybe the bank is asking for extra information, like a two-factor confirmation. So they have to retrieve a message in their mobile. They have to answer that, blah, blah, blah. Or maybe at some countries, I think like in India, etc., they have like additional security steps that their bank forces them to take before being able to charge the card. So that also will be handled at this point when confirming the payment, like that. Okay. So at this point, stuff will be paid already, but we still need to do something about that. And that something is we will listen for Stripe webhooks. Listen for Stripe webhooks in here, okay? And Stripe webhooks are essentially requests, so events that Stripe emits that we can listen for when something changes. So whenever a user pays for a subscription, updates a subscription, creates a subscription, but the payment fails, deletes a subscription, anything that happens in Stripe, we can listen for it. The same as when you're in Webflow and you submit a form and you can create a webhook for that. You can listen for a form submission. The same can be done with Stripe. So with these Stripe webhooks, we will connect then to the all zero part, which is update the user profile with the according rule whenever something changes in Stripe. Okay, so essentially we will be connecting this to here. So we have all this workflow. We identify the user has to be able to pay, and then we go to the payment screen, we create the payment intent, then the user fills the payment form, and then we confirm the payment. We make sure that everything went well, the user was able to pay, etc. Then Stripe will emit a webhook, okay? And we'll use that webhook data to see what happened. Did the user create a new subscription? Did the user change somehow the subscription? Was the subscription renewed? Was the subscription deleted? Anything that happened, Stripe will tell us, and then we will go back to Auth0 and we will update the user profile just reflecting the new status. If the user paid, then maybe we can make him premium. If the subscription somehow failed being charged, then we will downgrade the user back to free, etc. Okay, and then thanks to that, this means that all0 will always hold the user's role, even if it's premium, platinum, free, whatever, we'll have that reflected in all0. So then anytime that we want to use the app, because the user will be authenticated with what we did in the previous streams. So if there's something that you don't know still about all0, go ahead and check out the previous streams. Thanks to that, we will be able to check at all times, is the user premium? Okay, then you can create and update it to do. Is the user free? Then you can just read to-dos, but you cannot update it to do. I don't know. Okay. So just as a quick recap, this is our application. This is our multi-million-dollar app where we have a form to create to-dos. We have a login button and we have a logout button, and that's it. Okay. Let's create another page. Okay. So duplicate this and we'll say, I don't know, pay me. Okay. And in this page, we're going to handle everything related to charging the user, because I want to show you how to quickly slap Stripe on a site. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm just going to keep the login and logout button. That's fine. And I'm going to keep the form, but I don't need anymore the title, completed, submit, all of that. No longer needed. Okay. And this is not going to be to-dos form. This will be payment form, whatever. We're actually probably not going to use this. Okay. Okay, cool. So then let me just jump back to the code base for the front end. And in here, we have a bunch of logic related to the to-dos page. So creating to-dos, etc. Okay. So just for the sake of organization, I'm going to be doing some small changes here in this code so we can be as organized as possible. So let me, this is the index file, and this is supposed to be running in the homepage for the to-dos. But hold on a second. Client login with a redirect, client logout. Yeah, I'm gonna extract this, the creation of the client, okay, here, because I want to use that not only on the homepage for the to-dos, I also want to use that in the payment page, actually in all pages, right? So I'm gonna create an additional file, and maybe we can even just extract this. Quick tip. If you, in VS Code, if you select a piece of text, okay, and then you hit Control dot, or you hit the right click, and then I think that it's refactoring. Give me a second. Refactor. Then you can have a lot of it depends on what you selected, but you have a few suggestions for VS Code to do something. And in this case, I want to extract in a function, in arrow function. Yeah, that was cool. So now this is create client, all0 client. We create this function. Okay. What's happening here? Oh, no, right, because I create client like this, and I want to extract this to another page. So I'm gonna move this away. I'm gonna select this, and I'm gonna say move to a new file. So VS Code is helping me refactor stuff here. In case that you didn't know, you can do that. And this is gonna be client, whatever. Okay, so in this client function, we have the client, and we'll just hold on a second. Yeah, we'll just return. Oh, we're already doing it. So we're returning if it's logged in and the client. That's cool. And in here, we're already using that. Nice. Okay. Let me make sure that everything is working still fine. So let's just open this. And let's run this pm dev. Cool. Hold on a second. Is logged in false? That's good. Oh, hold on. I want to check the homepage. Sorry. So not logged in. That's great. Let's log in, make sure that everything is working. Okay, I had the test at test.com. Okay, let me run the backend just to make sure that everything is working fine. And it looks like it. We are able to get the access token. We are not getting, oh, because it's still not running. Hold on a second. Our user and the to-dos. Good. Okay, everything is working fine. Then we can jump back into the pay me. And now this was the home page. Let's just create another page that will be payments. I don't know, whatever. Okay. And in this payments, the first of all is that we want to compile that as a zipper file. So quick tip for everyone, if you're trying to use the developer starter, when you go to the bin file folder inside the build.js file, there's this entry points array that contains all the different files that you want to build separately. For now, we're just compiling the index.ts file, but I want to also compile the client.ts file. So I'm going to add it here. Client.ts, not client, sorry, payments.ts. Oh, what? Payments.ts, like this, okay? And this client could actually go inside the UDIS folder. So I'm compiling the payments file as a separate file. And for the sake of organization, I put the client in the utils because it's something that we will be utilizing in a bunch of places, okay? So let me just kind of copy the same thing in here. This will be create client like that, but I don't want to do anything with the to-dos like that. And you know what? We can actually, when creating the client, we can also check for the logging and logout buttons, you know, because that's always tied to the client. So we can just put this here like that. So essentially, when we're creating the client, we try to detect if there's some logging and log button, and if they are on the page, then we let them work on the click. We log in on click and we log out on click. Okay, so we can actually simplify this a lot, and this just turned into a refactoring class. So I apologize for that, but I think it will be worth it, like that. And I think that now everything should still be fine. Like this. So let's just compile this. So I'll stop for a second and run pm dev again to now pick the different script. You can see how I now have an additional script for payments because I added that in the entry points array here. Okay, so script here. Let's just copy this and go back to the Webflow side and replace the index.js, which is for the homepage, and instead we will use the payments.js. Okay, and now I think that we're good to go. Let's see for a second. Okay, console, it's logged in. This means that we are successfully payments. We are successfully in the payments page. That's correct. Okay, good. Okay. So now let's just jump back here in Webflow. We have a form, okay? And in this case, what we want to do is, first of all, we will make sure that the user is logged in. And for now, we have this very cool UI for logging and logging out. And then, assuming that the user is logged in, we will have a payment form. So you'll be able to select to add your information, okay? So for now, let me do a very simple thing, and it's just adding a div in here, okay? And let's identify this div with data element Stripe, for example, okay? Just that. If we go to the Stripe.js reference, we will see what do we need exactly to start using Stripe. Okay, essentially, we have to include the stripe.js library on the page. So going in here, we have the script here. Okay, this is the script that we need to have on the page. And let me slap it not only to the page, but actually to the entire site. And you'll see why in a second. I'm just going to put this here, paste it in, publish. Okay. And now maybe you're asking, hey, why are you slapping this on the entire site if we're just going to be charging users in the pay me page? Okay. And maybe you're also asking, hey, if we're if we have a code base here where we can import packages ourselves, why don't you install Stripe? And instead of importing it from a script, you do something like import from Stripe, and then from here, you create the Stripe client. Okay, there are reasons for that. The first reason is that if you download Stripe from the js.stripe.com source, then Stripe it's not going to be PCI compliant. Okay, PCI compliance it's something for security purposes, I believe. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not sure, but I think it's either something related to security of your payments, so it's storing credit cards and things like that. And Stripe can only ensure that your site is being PCI compliant if you are importing the Stripe library directly from Stripe using the script tag instead of installing it and loading it from your own deployment. Okay, so just put it like this on your site. And the reason why I'm putting it on the entire site instead of just the payment page, it's because Stripe has some anti-fraud mechanisms built in the library. So if you put it on the entire site, it's going to be analyzing how people use the site to try to detect if there's some malicious activity, like if it's a bot or somebody's trying to somehow hack your site and specifically payments. So I just recommend that you slap the script on the entire site and let Stripe do its job. Okay. So initializing Stripe.js, we need to just call the Stripe library and initialize it. But first of all, we need an API key. Okay. So I've done some free homework before joining this stream, and I've created a new account, a new Stripe account from scratch. Okay. So if anybody's following along, you can just open Stripe with me because we're gonna implement that in our site. Okay. This is the homepage from Stripe, and we want to go to the developers tab in here. And you can see that I'm in test mode. This is something that is really cool from Stripe, and it's that you can have the test mode and the live mode. And in test mode, you can fuck up as many times as you want. You can charge people as many times as you want because everything is just fake. It's not going to go through. It's not going to charge any real credit cards, and everything it will just be test. Okay, so I really recommend that you use the test mode in Stripe. Okay, so developers, we want to move into API keys. There's the publishable key, which is the one that we need, and then there's the secret key, which is the one that we will need later on when we go to the creating the payment intent step. Okay, but for now, let's just take the publishable key and let's call this. Hold on a second. Let's create the Stripe client. So I'm gonna do Stripe equals to new window.stripe. We'll fix that in a second. Window.stripe, and then we'll pass the API key. Okay. And I think that we can console out that for a second to see what happens. And don't worry, but we'll fix the TypeScript issue in a second. Okay, yeah, we have Stripe ready. Cool, we're almost there. Okay, now how can we fix this? Oops, how can we fix the squiggly line here? Because TypeScript doesn't know that there's a Stripe property in the window. What we can do is do exactly what I just told you not to do, and it's install the library, the Stripe library on the project. Okay, but we're just gonna install it in development mode and in the tab dependencies. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to open a new terminal and say pm add development. So that's the, and I think it's Stripe.js. Hold on a second. Because they have a library that can be installed, but it's not PCI compliant. I want to use this in here. But the good thing of that library is that it includes the type definitions. Okay. I have to reinstall some stuff because I changed my registry. It's nothing related to what you should be seeing in your terminal. So give me 1 second. So I'm going to do a quick stop. This is something that you could do with ESBuild, because in ESBuild, when we are in development, it injects, or when we are in production, it injects the node env key. So when we are in production, the node env is equals to production. And when we are in development, the node env is equals to development. They give you different keys for test mode and production mode. And what you could do is inject that key in build time. So instead of having it hard-coded like I'm doing here, let me restart the TS server. Instead of hard-coding it like this, you could just put a placeholder like Stripe key. Okay, and this is obviously going to fail. So I can say declare Stripe key. It's a string. Declare const. This is me telling TypeScript that there's a variable that it's called Stripe key. Okay, and then in here inject, you could, sorry, not inject, define. You could say Stripe key equals to JSON stringify. It has to be stringified. And we can check for if it's production or not. So if it's production, it can be one thing. And if it's development, it can be another thing. And we can go to Stripe and use the test key for development and use, let's just imagine that this is a production key. And it would be for production. And essentially then, every time that the project is built, ESBuild will inject the proper key. So either if it's the production key or the testing key based on the current environment. Okay, so one last thing. I'm going to declare the Stripe in the window. So I'm also going to say declare global. And in here, interface window, and Stripe will be Stripe. And I want to import Stripe from the library that I just installed while I was talking a lot. So I don't know if you noticed that it's Stripe.js. And this will be Stripe. Like that. So, oh yeah, right, because this is going to fail. So I can call this Stripe library. All declarations of Stripe must have identical modifiers. Hold on a second. If I'm doing this, Windows Stripe, it's possibly on the, oh, right, it just, never mind. So I'm trying to declare the types, but actually it's because I think that by just importing the type here, correct. So what's happening here is that the Stripe.js library, it's already including the types for me. So instead of manually importing it, I'm going to try to do this. Let's see if that fixes it. How about I do this now? Yeah, okay. And this is not a new key. Okay, let me recap what just happened, because I know that you might be confusing. So I installed the Stripe library just for the sake of having proper type definitions. And so the library is installed as a tab dependency. It's add Stripe/Stripe.js, okay? And the library already injects the type definitions in the window. So you can use the window.stripe function. Okay, so instead of manually importing it in the project, I just include those types in the TS config, which is the configuration for TypeScript. I'm saying, hey, there are some extra types that come from Stripe. Okay, and automatically ESBuild has picked that up. Not ESBuild, sorry, TypeScript has picked that up. And now I can call the constructor, which is Stripe that comes from the window. Okay, so if we check that again, we should be seeing exactly the same. We should be seeing the Stripe object, which is this one. Cool. So what's missing now is, let's initialize that. Let's initialize Stripe. We have that. We've called it Stripe. Okay. The next thing to do is call the element object, which is Stripe mounting the form, the payment form, on our page. Let's remember that inside the form here, we have an empty div block. And at this empty div block, it's defined as data element equals Stripe. So we can do this, and let's try to get the form. Not the form, sorry, the elements. Let's say Stripe element. Okay, and this is going to be document.create selector, data element Stripe. Thank you, GitHub Copilot. Like that. If we don't find it, we're just going to return. Okay. And also, we're going to say that if we don't have Stripe properly initialized, we'll also return, because it could happen that somehow it fails. And in here, now we can create, I think it's Stripe.elements, correct? Like that. Create card. Hold on a second. I believe that's what we're trying to do. Okay, so this is going to be Stripe elements, and this holds the instance that manages all the elements made by Stripe, which is the card form and all the collection of the info. Okay, and these elements, we can create the card instance like that. Let's see 1 second what happens. Let's see if everything it's being mounted properly. Data element Stripe, data element Stripe, Stripe elements, create card. I have to pass the element to it. Oh, we have to mount it. Sorry. Card mount Stripe element. And the idea here is that we mount that in an HTML element. So this has to be an HTML element. So let's try it again. Okay, cool. Okay, we have one checkpoint here, and it's that we are successfully mounting the Stripe form on the page. Okay, we have this empty div, and I just told Stripe to create this card form, which is what we want to be collecting. Okay, and to mount that card form on the Stripe element, which is we can even call it Stripe placeholder, which is the empty div that we created. Okay, so now we can start using that to submit some details. Let's remember what we're trying to do. We're identifying the user, check, that's done. We have been able to mount the payment form, but now what we have to do is create a payment intent. Okay, so essentially it's us telling beforehand to Stripe, hey, this user is trying to pay for something. Okay, so we have to first define what's that something. So let's go back to Stripe. Let's go to products, and we will create our first product. Okay, and this product will be to do, or it's just going to be, or no, let's just call this to do premium, for example. So essentially it's the premium subscription to the to-do app. Okay, we could add some description here. I don't mind. Standard pricing, let's just charge $1,000. Let's make dollars. $1,000 a month, because this is a unicorn company. We have to pay, it's worth it. it's worth. Okay. You could be setting this up in multiple ways. When you define it as recurring, it's going to be a subscription. When you define it as one time, it's just a single payment. Like if it's a product that you're shipping, I don't know, a t-shirt, whatever, then you want to go for a one time. Okay. So in this case, $1,000 a month for the premium subscription. Yeah. You could be adding different prices if you wanted to, because maybe you want to have a yearly payment, and that yearly payment can be $10,000, something like that. But for the sake of simplicity, we'll just have a single price today. Okay, so we have our pricing. Okay, so can you see, if you probably can see, we have a price ID here. So the moment that you have multiple prices, different products with different subscriptions, with different type of pricings, maybe monthly, yearly, etc., you will essentially have multiple IDs that identify every single type of payment that the user can do. So imagining that there were multiple options in here, you would first ask the user to choose that option. Hey, I want to be premium and I want to be paid for yearly. And then from those options that the user chose, you would decide what's the price ID, this ID in here, that you will include in the payment intent. Okay, because let's remember that the payment intent here, this is expecting us to tell to Stripe, hey, what's the user trying to purchase. Okay, but in this case, we just have one option, and it's the premium for $1,000 a month. So we know that the price is this one. Okay, so we have to now create the payment intent in here. Today, we're going to just leave it here. So there's a big cliffhanger for you. We're not going to charge our first $1,000 because it's been an hour already, and I want to make sure that we can properly explain the next steps. Okay. So next Friday, we will finalize what's missing from just having the form with the card information, and that's it, to actually submitting it with a payment intent that has been created with Stripe. Okay. But we need to jump back into the Cloudflare Workers environment to create this payment intent. So the next stream, it will involve, again, some backend work. So if you're interested in this, stay tuned. We'll see you next Friday. Thank you all.